You want a list because the mind wants handles. And the moment you ask why a lineage was chosen, the mind starts reaching for morality. It wants to know which choice is better, which story is cleaner, which explanation removes discomfort. But lineage selection is not a reward system and not a punishment system. It is a targeting mechanism for pressure, capacity, and consequence. The first step is admitting that the question is already unstable, because it asks for meaning inside a field that does not exist to comfort you. The next destabilization is that most people confuse lineage with personality, and then they treat personality as fate. They think the lineage gives traits, and the traits explain the life, and the life proves the worth. That is backwards. The lineage establishes a developmental environment, and the environment trains the nervous system, and the nervous system selects responses, and the responses build the life. If you do not see that chain, you will argue about labels instead of reading the mechanism. The mechanism is the only thing the Oversoul cares about. The 4 reasons Oversouls choose lineage are not separate boxes in a spiritual filing cabinet. They are force fields that overlap in the lived experience, even when they remain distinct in function. One reason can be dominant, another can be secondary, another can appear only at certain ages, and another can stay hidden until crisis arrives. This is why people feel confused when they try to reduce lineage to one lesson. A field that can only teach one lesson is too thin for the kind of growth that incarnation is built for. The first reason is emotional mastery, but do not mistake that phrase for self-help. Emotional mastery is not calmness, not positivity, not being unbothered. Emotional mastery is precision under pressure, the ability to feel without being owned by the feeling. It is the capacity to stay coherent while history pulls on the body, while social consequence tries to shape behavior, while memory triggers reflex. A lineage is often chosen because it contains an emotional climate that trains a specific range of mastery. Every lineage carries an emotional weather pattern that is not personal until it is. Some fields are steeped in vigilance because vigilance kept people alive. Some fields are steeped in endurance because endurance was the only available dignity. Some fields are steeped in restraint because visibility attracted danger. Some fields are steeped in expressive heat because silence became erasure. Emotional mastery is why a soul enters a weather pattern that will challenge its default strategies. A predictable objection appears here, because it sounds like you are spiritualizing suffering. That objection is valid, and it needs to stay present. Harm remains harm, and injustice remains injustice, even if growth occurs afterward. But an oversoul does not need harm in order to grow. It needs pressure and consequence. And Earth frequently supplies pressure through flawed systems. The question is not whether harm is holy. The question is why a soul would enter a field where harm is statistically more likely. And the answer sits in the kind of emotional precision that cannot be built in comfort alone. Emotional mastery also includes learning what your lineage trained you to do automatically. Some lineages train suppression, so the mission includes learning expression without collapse. Some lineages train expression, so the mission includes learning containment without shame. Some lineages train self-sacrifice, so the mission includes learning boundaries without guilt. Some lineages train dominance, so the mission includes learning humility without self-erasure. The first reason is chosen because it forces one of these polarities to become conscious, and that consciousness is the beginning of freedom. The second reason is archetypal access, which people often misunderstand as aesthetics. They think archetypes are costumes like warrior, healer, rebel, mystic, builder, storyteller. But archetypal access is a functional corridor, a way of entering universal roles through lived cultural memory and social consequence. A lineage can open the door to certain archetypal trainings earlier, because the field already contains the language and the pressure that activates them. The archetype is not a character. It is a pattern of action that reality responds to. In some lineages, the warrior archetype is trained through real survival pressures that demand courage and strategic awareness. In other lineages, the builder archetype is trained through long exposure to systems that reward organization, control, and material stability. In other lineages, the healer archetype is trained because the community becomes the hospital when institutions fail. In other lineages, The rebel archetype is trained because compliance becomes a slow death. Archetypal access is a reason because it grants a soul immediate immersion in a role that it came to refine. A second objection rises because archetypes can sound like stereotyping, and stereotyping is one of the great poisons of lineage discourse. The correction is that archetypal access is not a claim that every individual is the same. It is a claim that the field makes certain roles more available, more pressured, more rewarded, or more necessary. The individual may resist the role, embody it, or transform it into something new. That resistance is itself part of the curriculum because it reveals where the soul is not here to repeat the inherited script. Archetypal access also explains why some people feel like strangers in their own culture. They may be assigned to interrupt the dominant archetype rather than continue it. A lineage that valorizes toughness can generate a soul whose work is tenderness, not as weakness but as corrective medicine. A lineage that valorizes intellect can generate a soul whose work is embodiment, bringing truth into the body rather than keeping it in the head. A lineage that valorizes loyalty can generate a soul whose work is discernment, separating love from enabling. The archetype is chosen so the soul can meet it, question it, and evolve it. The third reason is karmic intersections. But this is where the mind wants superstition and the heart wants vindication. Karmic intersection is not a cosmic court that assigns payback. It is a relational geometry that repeats until it becomes conscious. Certain souls will enter certain lineages because unresolved relational patterns remain stored in the broader family field. You can call that contracts, recurrence, memory loops, or unfinished lessons. But the experience is the same. Certain dynamics keep returning until someone changes the response. Karmic intersection can look like repeating themes of abandonment, betrayal, control, sacrifice, or silence across generations. It can look like the same type of relationship conflict appearing in different decades with different faces. It can look like a child inheriting an emotional debt that nobody spoke aloud, then spending a lifetime trying to repay it through achievement or caretaking. This is not fair in human terms, which is why it becomes combustible. But the Oversoul does not choose what feels fair. It chooses what will force the pattern into the light. Another objection appears because people fear that karmic language will be used to excuse abuse. That fear is justified because it happens constantly in lower-level metaphysical spaces. Karmic intersection never makes harm acceptable, and it never demands forgiveness on a schedule. It only explains why a soul would enter a place where certain dynamics are already active, because it intends to meet them consciously rather than unconsciously. If harm occurs, accountability is still required in the human world, and that requirement is part of the curriculum as well. Karmic intersection also includes collective patterns, not only personal family dynamics. A soul can choose a lineage that sits at a historical crossroads because it wants to participate in a collective turning point. It may enter a field where identity is politicized, where survival is contested, where history is heavy, because that is where certain moral and relational muscles must be built. The curriculum can involve learning how to hold truth without hatred, how to resist without losing humanity, how to build dignity without becoming cruel. Those capacities rarely emerge in places where history does not press down. The fourth reason is dimensional resonance, which is the most misunderstood because people hear it and immediately chase specialness. Dimensional resonance is not superiority and not magical blood. It is a compatibility between a soul's subtle capacities and the subtle languages embedded in a lineage. Certain lineages carry spiritual technologies, intuitive sensitivities, and ritual memory that remain present even when the culture forgets its origin. A soul can choose a lineage because it needs that subtle access to awaken, stabilize, or refine its inner senses. Dimensional resonance can show up as natural attunement to sound, rhythm, trance, prayer, meditation, dream work, or symbolic perception. It can show up as a sensitivity to ancestors, to land, to collective emotion, or to unseen social currents. It can also show up as a heightened vulnerability, because sensitivity without grounding becomes overwhelm, paranoia, or spiritual bypass. This is why dimensional resonance is not a gift basket. It is a demand for integration. The lineage is chosen because it carries a language the soul can speak, but speaking it will still cost coherence. A final objection rises here, because spiritual language can become escapism, and escapism can become disrespect for real-world struggle. The correction is that dimensional resonance is not an alternative to history. It is another layer of history. Many spiritual capacities were developed under pressure, as survival, as hope, as community glue, as inner refuge. When a soul enters that field, it inherits both the capacity and the wounds that surround it. The mission is not to float above the world. The mission is to carry sensitivity into the world without being destroyed by it. Now the vectors begin to converge, but they should not resolve into a neat answer yet. Emotional mastery explains the nervous system training. Archetypal access explains the role corridor. Karmic intersections explain the repetition geometry. And dimensional resonance explains the subtle language compatibility. In one life, a soul might choose a lineage primarily for emotional mastery, then later discover that the archetypal corridor was the real engine. In another life, the karmic loop might be dominant early, and the dimensional resonance might awaken only after the loop is confronted. This is why the question of why is never satisfied by a single line. The unsettling truth is that a lineage can be chosen for reasons that the personality would reject if it could see them in advance. The personality wants ease, approval, belonging, and a clean story. The Oversoul wants capacity, coherence, and a response that is true under consequence. That difference produces internal conflict, and that conflict is not failure. It is the friction that makes awareness grow. If you are looking for a reason that feels flattering, you will miss the real reason, because the real reason usually confronts you. So the closer you get to the answer, the more personal the question becomes. Which emotional weather pattern are you being forced to master rather than escape? Which archetypal corridor keeps trying to claim you, even when you resist it? Which repeating relational geometry keeps arriving until you change the response? Which subtle language keeps calling you? And what would it cost to embody it with integrity? If you can hold those questions without turning them into identity performance, the field begins to reveal why you are here, and why it could not have been any other placement. You want the 4 reasons to become usable, not inspirational. The moment you hear a list, the mind turns it into trivia, and trivia becomes distance. Your lineage is not information, it is immersion. It is a pressure chamber that trained your nervous system before you had words for the training. That means the reason cannot be understood as a concept first, because it started as sensation. Start here. The Oversoul does not select identity, it selects environment, and environment shapes response. Response becomes behavior, behavior becomes consequence, consequence becomes character. People reverse the chain and then blame themselves for what the chain produced. They call it personality when it was conditioning. They call it fate when it was training. Emotional mastery is not the soft version people sell. It is precision while the body carries inherited alarm signals. It is coherence while society projects meaning onto your face and expects you to perform that meaning. It is the ability to stay present when your history is being pulled forward by a single word, a single tone, a single glance. A lineage can be chosen because it contains a specific emotional climate that will force mastery to become real. Some lineages are built inside intensity, not as drama, but as density. Love is loud, conflict is loud, loyalty is loud, disappointment is loud. That loudness trains fast emotional processing, quick attunement to shifting moods, rapid calibration of danger and safety. The mission might be learning to hold that intensity without letting it become chaos. The mission might also be learning to speak clearly without becoming harsh. Other lineages are built inside containment, not as repression, but as survival strategy. Feelings are monitored, expression is regulated, vulnerability has consequences. That containment trains endurance, patience, planning, and a certain kind of internal privacy. The mission might be learning to release pressure without collapsing structure. The mission might also be learning to trust intimacy without needing control. This is where people get stuck, because they assume the emotional climate is the point. It is not. The point is the capacity built in response to the climate. The Oversoul chooses a lineage so you will meet a certain limit in yourself, then outgrow it from the inside. If you only romanticize the climate or resent the climate, you miss the training. Now move to archetypal access, because this is where identity politics tries to hijack spiritual language. Archetypes are not stereotypes, and they are not costumes. They are action patterns that reality responds to, and a lineage can place those patterns close to you early. Some people grow up near the healer corridor, some grow up near the builder corridor, some grow up near the rebel corridor, and some grow up near the mediator corridor. Archetypal access means the field around you rewards certain roles and punishes others. If a community needs protectors, courage becomes a daily practice, not a motivational quote. If a community needs organizers, competence becomes identity, and failing becomes shame. If a community needs caretakers, empathy becomes default, and boundaries become guilt. A lineage can be chosen because it gives you early saturation in an archetype you came to refine. Refinement is the key word, because the Oversoul does not need you to repeat the archetype. It needs you to evolve it. That means you might be born into a warrior-coded field to learn how to protect without becoming cruel. You might be born into a caretaker-coded field to learn how to love without self-deletion. You might be born into a builder-coded field to learn how to create without worshipping control. The archetype is chosen so you can meet its shadow and change the pattern. This is also why some people feel like they do not belong in their own lineage. They were not sent to blend, they were sent to pivot. They carry a corrective frequency that irritates the inherited script, and the irritation creates conflict. Conflict does not mean you are wrong. It means the field is being forced to see itself. Archetypal access becomes the stage where the soul either performs the role or rewrites it. Now move into karmic intersections, but do not turn it into a courtroom. Karma is not cosmic punishment. It is repeated geometry. It is the same emotional math showing up with different faces until someone changes the operation. Lineage is where that geometry becomes visible, because families are repetition machines until awareness enters the system. Karmic intersections can look like the same wound traveling through generations with different disguises. Control can wear the mask of protection, and protection can become suffocation. Silence can wear the mask of peace, and peace can become emotional abandonment. Sacrifice can wear the mask of love, and love can become resentment. A soul can choose a lineage because it intends to break one of these loops by responding differently. Responding differently does not mean forgiving everything or spiritualizing harm. Harm stays harm, and accountability stays required. The karmic work is not excusing, it is ending the recurrence. Sometimes ending recurrence means leaving. Sometimes it means speaking the truth that nobody has ever spoken. Sometimes it means refusing to carry a role that was assigned through guilt. This is where the taboo sharpens, because people want a reason that protects their ego. They want to be told their lineage was chosen because they are special. But karmic intersections often mean the opposite. You were assigned to a difficult place because you could see the pattern, and seeing it gives you responsibility. Responsibility is not superiority, it is weight. Now move into dimensional resonance, and do not turn it into fantasy. Dimensional resonance is compatibility between subtle capacity and subtle language. Some lineages carry ancestral spiritual technologies even after the culture forgets the origin. Some lineages carry deep dream access, trance sensitivity, symbolic perception, or intuitive reading of social currents. A soul can choose a lineage because it needs that language to wake up. This resonance is not only light. Sensitivity without grounding becomes anxiety, paranoia, and dissociation. Gifts without ethics become manipulation and self-deception. A lineage can be chosen because it forces a sensitive soul to become disciplined, not mystical. The point is integration, not spectacle. Dimensional resonance also includes relationship to land, rhythm, story, and collective emotion. Some lineages are tuned to sound, movement, and communal transmission. Some lineages are tuned to silence, observation, and long memory. Some lineages are tuned to survival intuition, reading the room in seconds. When a soul enters that field, it inherits both the tuning and the trauma around it. Now the reasons begin to touch each other, but you still should not simplify them. Emotional mastery sets the nervous system. Archetypal access sets the role corridor. Karmic intersections set the repeating geometry, and dimensional resonance sets the subtle language. In the lived experience they braid. Your emotions get shaped by roles get shaped by repetition. Repetition gets shaped by sensitivity. Sensitivity gets shaped by emotional climate. This is why two people from the same lineage can look like opposites. One repeats the inherited script, one rebels against it. One carries the archetype cleanly, one carries it as a wound. One becomes a transmitter, one becomes a skeptic. The Oversoul is not selecting a personality template, it is selecting a pressure field and a set of probabilities. The real question is not which reason applies, but which reason is currently active in your life. Are you being trained in precision under pressure, where emotions are no longer allowed to run the body? Are you being trained to evolve an archetype, where you stop performing the inherited role and start rewriting it? Are you being trained to break a recurrence, where you stop repeating the family math and change the operation? Are you being trained to integrate sensitivity, where gifts become grounded capacity instead of chaos? If you want the answer to land without becoming political, you keep it at the level of function. You talk about nervous systems, roles, loops, and tuning. You refuse the bait of superiority, and you refuse the bait of shame. You do not say one lineage is better. You say each lineage is a curriculum with a different weight. The taboo dissolves when the frame shifts from identity to mission. So when someone asks why your Oversoul chose your lineage, you do not give them a flattering story. You give them a mirror that forces honesty. What did this field train you to do automatically? What did it train you to fear? What did it train you to hide? What did it train you to carry for others? The answer is not a label, it is a pattern. And that pattern is the assignment. If this transmission resonated, the spiral continues. You did not arrive here by chance, and you do not leave unchanged. More teachings are unfolding across the Haret library, each one meeting you where you are, not where you think you should be. Follow resonance. The next threshold is already listening.